Hello, and welcome to another episode of Scavenger Life. This is episode number 360 at scavengerlife.com.
Ryan, are you all stressed out?
We just have a lot going on.
We have a busy week.
Yeah.
So anyone who goes full-time on eBay, oftentimes it's like, I'm going to quit my job and go full-time.
Right.
And what we always tell people is, that's cool. Welcome to the world of it's your own life. The other thing is, you don't always have to just like have a black line where it's like, I'm no longer doing that other kind of work.
Or I'm no longer doing anything else.
Right. I'm stopping doing this job or this training I did for my whole life, and now I'm just doing eBay. Like for us, when we stopped doing our jobs,
right,
we started doing eBay, and we realized we could still do that work. So like this week is a good example where now we actually have a video client who likes us enough in our work. She actually is here, and we had this weird mix of our businesses now. She's actually staying in our rental. Right,
while we're doing video work.
And we're doing video work with her, filming like technical videos for her company.
Yeah.
And it's cool, So,
yeah, and it's funny. So why you're like, Ryan, are you stressed out? Because it's like, we're also running another Airbnb at the same time, so we're doing laundry right now. I have my eBay helpers coming during the week, so we're trying to juggle all these things to happen at once. But it's all good stuff because it means like your businesses are running.
Well, it's good. So, so my point, and then I'll be done, is just, it's good that we can still do this other work, but we can pick and choose the kind of work we want to do, the kind of clients. And I find like they will work with us in our lifestyle because we're cool people.
Oh, really? Is that why? Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because it kind of goes into what we're going to talk about today, which is diversification.
Yeah.
So that's a different level of diversification where we have different streams of income. They're all kind of firing at the same time.
So we were talking about it on our forum with other scavengers out there.
Yeah.
It's a big kind of like business speak.
Right.
Like, you should diversify the business, don't have everything on one platform. And that comes from... And it makes a lot of sense.
Right. And so that terminology, from what I understand, comes from stock investing. Always diversify your portfolio.
Sure.
That's where I first heard it.
Right. And, so like the business dudes on YouTube, like they just kind of say that, you should just sell everywhere so that way if one thing fails, and it's like, okay, it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
But let's talk about the reality of that. Number one is being on other platforms takes work.
And time.
And for us, we found that work on one platform takes away from work on another.
Right.
So, for example, we sell on eBay. Well, let's say we want to sell on Etsy too.
Right.
The amount of time we start to list on Etsy is time we aren't doing eBay.
Right.
If we want to start to list on Poshmark.
Right.
Same thing, and all these other, and every year, one or two new places pop up where people are like, should I start to sell there?
Right.
Now, I find like the best people that do this, the best scavengers that can like spread their work, are the ones who are real smart and they sell different things on different platforms.
Right.
So, they'll sell their clothes on eBay, and they'll sell furniture on Craigslist, and they'll sell a retail arbitrage on Amazon. So they aren't duplicating anything.
Right.
They're just trying to pick the right platform for the items that they sell.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense.
Now, we do a little bit of that. Like, we try to sell larger furniture and stuff on Craigslist and OfferUp, and it's just not as good as eBay.
Yeah,
for us, it's just any other platform is never as good as eBay. It's just not.
Right. I mean, like in our experience, we've never found another platform that sells enough on a consistent basis where we're getting like a big stream of income.
Right.
So anytime we've experimented with any of these little sites, it's always just been a sale here and there, it's like, okay, that's kind of cool, but really it's like eBay has been working for us,
Even for big local pickup Craigslist type items.
Now, I know some people are, looking into, there are these like third-party listing apps, and they'll help you cross-post your eBay items to other platforms.
Right.
Like take your eBay items and put them on Etsy really easily, or, basically people want to say, well, I want to be able to sync my items everywhere. And to me, like what it's Bonanza does.
Yeah,
it's really weird that eBay allows this.
Yeah.
You can just let Bonanza take your sync to your eBay store, and they just copy everything. If something sells on Bonanza, it ends
it on eBay.
Yeah.
And Truegether too. I don't know if Truegether ends stuff, but Truegether syncs to your store too. You're like, why does eBay allow that?
And to me, I'm just like, okay, I get why that'd be cool, but it's like, so if everyone could just start to sync their stores to everywhere, to Poshmark and Etsy and Mercado and whatever else it's inside, then it's just like a big, huge spam game with the same items everywhere.
So what is the point?
So I don't know how much that diversification is like cool, but I guess if it's possible, why not?
Yeah, I don't know the answer, but I mean, when it comes down to it, it's like you said, if you focus, I mean, we were doing some numbers where some people were like, okay, I have this many listings on Etsy and this many listings on eBay, and you're like, well, if you just listed everything on eBay, you'd be making the same amount of money. Like, it actually evens out. Like, your numbers are the same.
Right, and then it just becomes like, well, what platform do you enjoy being on? Like, there's one scavenger who was like all eBay for a long time, and then she kind of like seemed to just like kind of a sour on eBay, and she basically just kind of switched over to Etsy.
Yeah, fully Etsy.
Over like a period of a year or so. Yeah. Seems like she just started to list only on Etsy and then kind of got away from eBay. And every time she kind of pops up and she talks about her numbers, it looks like she's making about the same amount as she always has. Just she's making that money now on Etsy,
and she likes it better.
And she, talks about less fees, and
less fees, better customers, stuff like that.
And that's fine. So to me, it's like, okay, so if you're not doubling your money, you're just picking a different place,
right,
to sell. I think the other thing with, the diversification thing is that you can start to run after things that are failing, like a lot of these sites I said, pop up. Yeah. And they're going to be the new eBay killer. Right. Like, does anyone remember, was it 11 Main?
It's just
like they popped up, and we're going to be.
You said that. I'm like, I completely forgot about that site.
That they were going to be this huge, site
and now
that had all this money.
Exist?
No,
they're not even.
So the danger is like if you start putting time into one of these new sites that isn't, that hasn't shown itself to do anything. And then it just crashes and dies.
Yeah, because they had VC funding, and then it ends, and it was a startup. And
so, it's a risk to put a lot of time into a site that may not be here in a year.
Right, exactly.
That's the other thing that we always think about when we're considering trying to experiment on another site.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing is you could hire out the work. People are like, well, if I want to start to a list on different platforms, maybe I'll just hire someone who will be like my Etsy person.
Yeah.
And I'll pay this person, and they'll take my eBay items, and they'll list those things on Etsy.
Yeah.
But then you're paying more money to sell the same items.
Right.
And so maybe you'll make more because you're a listing in a different place, but then you're paying this extra person, and then it's just basically a numbers game.
Yeah.
And you're adding complexity onto the business.
Right.
Right. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We thought about that. Like, we thought about having our helper.
We did, yeah. I thought about having our helper just, like, cross-post things to Etsy. And I was like, eventually I'm like, I'd rather just list more stuff on eBay.
Yeah. And then I guess the other argument for diversifying, and the big one is like, don't have all your eggs in one basket, What if eBay were to fail tomorrow and all your things are in there and then you don't have any income at all? And I guess it's always possible, eBay could get crushed by, Facebook comes on, some other site comes on, actually does it well, and brings everyone over there to come and buy. But to me, the argument against that is, I don't think it would happen overnight. And eBay has been around for so long now. I remember when we first got on eBay, I would read in the forums about how people just predicted eBay was going to end, in 2008. And right. 10 years later, eBay's still fine,
Yeah, because there are other places, kind of like you said, like Facebook or Amazon, whatever. And you're like, yeah, sure. People always say there's going to be like something that takes eBay down or is better.
Yeah, so, we're not being blind to the fact that we mainly just sell on eBay. Like, that's, right. 99% of our income right. comes from that when we sell online.
Right.
The other 1% is the random things we sell on Craigslist or Bonanza, But right. I feel like we're not blind to that fact, and we always keep an eye out. If some other site, it's like we said, if Facebook started having like a payment a system or something, or Amazon started to allow to selling, old hard goods or whatever. Things. We would just, and we saw that that's where buyers were going to go to. We would then switch over,
Yeah.
So.
Right, and it just, we haven't seen that, so.
So anyway, to wrap this up, I think it's fine for people to think about diversifying. Be like those smart scavengers that sell certain items on certain sites. But right. the whole idea of trying to duplicate my entire eBay store someplace else, for us, we don't have that kind of mind time,
right.
to make that happen.
And we have done that on 2 other sites, and we barely ever sell anything. So
like
Bonanza and Together,
right.
and you're like, all right, like what?
Right. Because the dream is, I'm making $5,000 a month on eBay. Well, if I just duplicate my entire store onto Etsy, right. I'm going to make another $5,000. Right. And I just don't know. I don't know if that logic makes sense or not.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about our eBay store. One thing that was interesting is we actually had a piece of art that was listed. And it was probably one of our earlier pieces of art. It's probably been up for 4 years.
It's been up for many years, yeah.
And someone actually mentioned that we didn't have it upright.
Okay, so the deal was, what's funny now that I look at it, you can read the signature pretty well. And for some reason I was like, I can't read this signature. And I'm like, it's signed but unreadable. And someone was like, no, it's this person. And he's like kind of well-known American artist. People look for him. And I was like, oh yeah, it totally does. Like his signature is so clearly written. So I relisted it with his name on it. It's a beautiful drawing.
From like 1940.
1940. It's dated in 1940, and it's got a beautiful frame. I would love to hang that up in a rental or at our house if it doesn't sell. So, but yeah, that was actually super helpful that someone messaged us like, "Hey, this is so and so."
So sometimes, I'm sure that happens to other people too. There are often a lot of people that help you out by telling you, that.
Yeah, that happens a lot actually, especially with vintage military stuff. Right. People are very, very knowledgeable out there.
I think it's also a good example too. That when we first get into like a new category, our skills are not as good as they will be later on.
And I want to say also, right, so that was listed years and years ago, and we didn't have very much artwork. So, I don't know, maybe... I think what happened was I was like, I can't really read this. Okay, it's unknown person. And then I never looked back to be like, oh, no, you can read that. It's like, I just honestly listed it and forgot it. Literally.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
We have been looking into a listing software, like...
Right, like 6-bit or Wunderlist, or we kind of talked about it last week.
Ink Frog, I mean,
Right, Garage Sale.
And I don't know, it's just because people on the forum start talking about these things, they're like, I love it so much, oh yeah, I have control of my store. And I'm like, I want control of my store too. Right,
so the issue is this, and you kind of mentioned this, where I was like, well, if I can be on different computers and this person's on their laptop at their house and they're like writing titles, but then people were like, no, it's just on a database on one computer. And I'm like, that makes no sense.
And everyone has to be on the same network, so only on our own Wi-Fi. Like, someone could be at our house on a different laptop, but
and it would sync.
They can't be at home working. Or if we're traveling, we would have to be carrying the computer that had the database. And then I'm just like, so
basically the cloud, like, listing through eBay on the cloud is just eBay. You're like, just sign in on different computers.
Yeah.
Like,
so I'm just like, what's the control that you have, like, through one of these sites? I guess it keeps a record of everything, you
can download.
You keep all your photos. Database. I guess people say it's easier to, like, bulk edit stuff through this site, and then you sync to eBay versus use the eBay.
Right.
I don't know. It's just not quite enticing enough, because it's a whole thing to, like, you can't just turn it on and try it out a little bit. It'd be a whole thing. You have to import everything and set up the database. Yeah.
I kind of thought it was like they were going to be like Dropbox, where you're just like, you open your computer and you did some listings and it syncs up, and it doesn't seem like it's like that.
I mean, so I was talking to one guy who works for a 6-bit, and I was emailing back and forth, and I was like, well, why don't you make it like a cloud computing? He's like, no, it's just desktop software. But and then I'm like, if it became like cloud, like a cloud program where it's like, well, then it's just eBay. Like it's
just eBay, right?
And then I'm just like,
it's just.
Well, why doesn't eBay just do what we want? Like, why doesn't eBay allow you to have, a user profile that you could give a helper.
Like a helper profile.
And then, I'm thinking, like, what about those big eBay stores? The ones that have, like, a lot of employees and they sell, thousands of items a month.
What do they use?
I mean, are they just giving all their employees access to their main account? I don't understand.
Right, I know.
So I don't know.
There used to be Turbo Lister, and I wonder if that was what we're talking about, you know?
Anyway, so that's kind of where we're at. Someone said Ink Frog, which I was kind of reading, but I didn't quite understand that they are in the cloud. But so I don't know.
Also, I've heard that you can download your eBay data through File Exchange.
Right.
But I'm like, I have no idea what that is. I'm like, is that something
Did you looked at it?
No, I mean, I've heard about it before, and someone was mentioning it. Oh, you can download all the data.
Yeah, it's probably a way that eBay allows people to tap into their database.
But then someone on the forum was like, yeah, you can download it, but no photos come with it. And you're like, literally, that is like the whole point. I don't know. So I feel like there's no good solution.
Yeah.
Someone was like, garage sale. And that garage sale has gotten better.
Right.
So I just have to look at that too. But it does. I also think garage sale is just a desktop software on your laptop.
And I just remember the reason why I didn't, back then it was like they had all these templates.
Right.
So they would
HTML
put
templates.
Like this weird template in the a listing. And I'm like, I don't want
I think you can take that off.
Can you? Okay.
Yeah, I think you can take that off now.
Good.
I'm not sure. But anyway, it's one of those things where you're like, I don't see a good solution, so I'm just not going to do anything.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about our numbers. So this week was very soft.
You know what? I like the term now.
Yeah?
Instead of soft, light.
Light.
It was a light week.
We had some light sales.
Yes.
So it is Saturday morning right now, so we still have all day to sell. So as of right now, we've sold 32 items, and we've sold about $1,100.
Yeah, it's a light week, that's for certain.
Now, that's the money we need to make to, like, pay our mortgages and pay all of our bills. But, man, that's, it was just kind of...
Slowy.
What it is. I saw other people talk about it on the forum. I don't know. That's just how it is. It's one of those things.
So we sold just some cool sales. We sold a set of vintage flatware to the set designer of that show, The Deuce.
The Deuce.
On HBO.
Yep.
Some people had said they had sold stuff to them for the first season. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, sold that for $130.
$130.
I sold a fossil for $45.
Yep. A fossil of a fern.
Pretty nice.
That was cool.
We sold some slides.
Yes.
For $35.
To a photographer, like collage artist in New York City.
And
perfect person to buy them.
7 of them. You know?
A lot of 7.
Again, for us, like that's the whole thing. We'll buy like a big lot of slides, and then we'll do the work to break them up into smaller things, and then sell them for a lot more.
Right. So
$35 for 7 slides, $5 each. That's great.
They were beautiful. They were Kodachrome from the 40s of kids like playing in the snow and with like little toboggans. It was great. I'm like, these are gorgeous.
Now here's a bolo for you.
A bolo.
It's we sold a Chinese ginger jar.
Yeah.
Those like blue and white.
Yeah, like
porcelain
with the
or whatever.
top.
We sold it for $130.
It's funny. It's like we had some big sales, but not enough to.
But so this is. The reason why it's good to try and find these now is that it's kind of like the hip. It's new thing.
Trendy right now.
If you look in a West Elm catalog or a Restoration Hardware, the whole thing is about these ginger jars.
You know what it was? These magazines come to our house just because we're like subscribed to other magazines. So Williams Sonoma Home, which is they own West Elm and Restoration and all that stuff. But so the last one that I saw had all these ginger jars and ginger jar lamps. And I'm like, oh, I got to keep an eye out for these because people are buying them for decoration.
Yeah, so...
I mean, they always have. I mean, they're from forever ago, but right now they seem to be trendy.
And we also sold some shell. Like, we sold a
shell.
Like a clam shell.
It was pretty big. It was 6x9.
Right.
It was quite large.
For $40.
And those can sell, like, if it's bigger than that, if it's like 10 to 15 inches, they can sell for hundreds.
Yeah. And, I mean, those are the cool things, because those are the things that are often on those tables at auctions.
You know, someone's like, what is this? Just a seashell? And you're like, no.
I mean, that is something where I'm like, why is someone buying a shell? I guess they like put it on a table.
Decor! And
they have like a nautical theme.
Exactly.
Okay, customer issues. Just a couple things. We got a neutral feedback for this week. This is the second one this year in 2018. And it was on an $11 pair of socks. So it seems like this is very common where we'll get like the people that are buying the smallest, cheapest items are the ones that are the most critical.
Yeah.
And the strange thing was the feedback had been like, okay, thanks! ! And then a neutral feedback. And Ryan like wrote to the person like,
I thought maybe it was a mistake.
Yeah, like, did we do something wrong?
Right.
And she got really angry at us. And she's like, you guys are so sensitive. I have a right to leave you neutral feedback if I want.
She was like, I can't believe you're confronting me. Which is really funny because you're like, you left public feedback on my store. It's not like I'm like...
And so
weird.
I only bring this up. I mean, it really isn't a big deal. We can live with it. But, when people on the forums talk about, like, how they deal with a neutral or a negative feedback, a lot of people say, well, I message the buyer and I try to get them to change it. And this has been our experience. Like, anytime we talk to a buyer
about...
They don't write back at all. They're just like, they ghost us.
Yeah.
Or it's like this where, like, they don't want to... Like, they're offended that
they get very belligerent. You're like, I just want to know if I did something wrong. And what she said was, you did nothing wrong. I didn't want to return them, but the socks were not as thick as I wanted.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
So, and this is a good example, I think, how other people experience their feedback is that, some buyers are using feedback in a different way than it actually, it works. I mean, for eBay, if you don't get 5 stars, if you've done something wrong.
Right, you as the seller have done something wrong.
And some buyers are using feedback like they do on a Yelp or something.
Or Amazon.
Where it's just like, the item was okay, I'm not upset about it. It's just a neutral, but...
Yeah, and you're like, the thing about feedback on eBay is they're judging you as a seller. So when she was like, oh, you were fine, like, it was fine... And so here's the kicker. She's like, I sell on eBay too. And I'm like, then you should know that you shouldn't leave me a neutral feedback. Because as a seller, I did everything right. I even asked you if, and I said I would gladly take a return.
And when we looked at her feedback, and she
does this, she to
definitely
lots of sellers.
Will just be like, yeah, item okay. And then she gives them a neutral or negative feedback because she's actually... leaving feedback on how she feels about the item. Anyway, it is just what it is. There's nothing we can do. I'm always amazed when a seller can convince a buyer to change their feedback. In the 10 years we've sold, we've never been able to do that. And this is interesting too.
Yeah.
And I want to bring this up because I think we handled this very well. Okay. We sold a really nice, it was an
Armani, blazer.
Suit jacket, right?
Yeah.
And we sold it for it was like $86.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a good sale, It's a great sale.
Buyer gets it, and they write us, and he's like, this is a kid's jacket. How dare you send me something so small? I want my money back right now. And so we basically just... ignored him.
I did not message him back.
We used the silent method because he wasn't opening a case.
Right.
He wasn't sending photos. He was just kind of belligerent.
Demanding,
And we find, until they open a case, sometimes it's good just to be silent.
Yeah.
He writes back a couple days later and he says, if you don't send me my money back right now, I'm going to start a PayPal chargeback and leave you negative feedback.
Which is feedback extortion.
And to me,
just so you know.
Yeah, not only that, but it's like he's talking about going to PayPal and not doing it through eBay.
Right.
So I wrote him very calmly and just reminded him, we have 30-day returns on all of our items. Right. If you're unhappy, just send it back. Mail it back. Once we get the item back, we'll give you a refund.
Right.
And then you know what?
Silence.
He didn't say anything else.
Yep.
And it's been 4 days now.
And you know what makes me think of? I'm like, oh, he just wanted money and he wants to keep the item.
See, and when I hear other sellers talk about these kind of buyers, I really think it might be a technique where some buyers know if they can bully you, and they can scare you with
negative feedback,
chargebacks.
Yeah,
think that there are a lot of buyers or people
sellers,
who sell who are like, look, I'll just give you $50.
That's fine. Let's fix it.
Let's just be good with it. And so for us, we like to always say, just send it back.
Well,
so that way they have to take an action.
They have to do something.
And also they have to give us the item back.
Yeah, it's like no, you don't get to keep this.
If they don't really,
Yeah, it doesn't fit you.
Right.
Don't keep it. The other thing too is when he's like, I'll do a PayPal chargeback, and you're like, but you bought this from me.
And you got it.
And I have the tracking that shows that. So the only chargeback you could open was, I would like to return this item, and PayPal will make you prove that you return the item with tracking, just like eBay. So you're like, go for it. Yeah. I don't know what you think you're going to do.
We only bring that up because I just think that's an important thing for if you're someone it's new who sells on eBay to accept its returns. That's always the answer.
Accept the return.
Send it back.
That's what we always say. Yeah. If someone's like, I'm unhappy. Great, send it back.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no. Like last week, this guy, we kind of said this. You sent me a belt that must be a children's belt. You're like, it's 36 inches. It could literally be for anybody. And he opened a case. I'm returning this right away. Didn't return it. Whatever. It was like 7 days went by, and I closed the case.
I mean, I think that's why, unless a buyer opens a case or has a very so specific a question, we often will just, be silent. Because sometimes they're just trying to vent, Like
they're just like...
It's like it's not specific. They're just venting,
Right. And so sometimes, like you said, when buyers aren't like, I would like to return this item. Like that guy with the jacket, he's like, you must give me my money back right now. We were like, no, we don't.
I mean, there's returns on there if
system,
you want it.
Go through the system. Yep.
Okay, things we learned in the forum. Well, like we kind of talked about at the top of the show, we were
diversification.
Talking about that was a good, fun conversation. But one thing that was interesting was there was a seller who's been part of a forum for a while. Ashana.
Yeah.
She came on and she says she's quitting her job and going full time. Like as of, I guess, right now or soon.
Yep.
And it was cool. Like it was a whole conversation and people were encouraging her and sharing their experiences, and she was kind of talking about how she's kind of come at this, and it's been over a couple of years now. Of starting her store and doing it both with her other job, and then deciding to quit her job and she just couldn't take it anymore. And she was just, concerned about like how she managed her time. Yeah. I guess that can be a problem for some people. Like if you're accustomed to like having to have a work schedule kind of put on you, what happens when
you're like, I can sleep till noon?
Yeah, and people were talking about their, some people who that sell seem like they're like, I like to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning,
right?
Do everything by 9, and then I'm done for the day.
Yeah, right. Which is, sometimes I do that.
Yeah, I think that my point was just like, if you work for someone for 40 hours a week, just do that for
work. Yeah, exactly.
It's yourself, and then over time you'll find the schedule that's good for you. I just find like we've learned that we just enjoy the different projects we have. And it's kind of exciting that we can do them,
Yep. Exactly. So, we do a lot of stuff in one day. That's for certain.
One person was like, just don't start drinking and doing drugs. I'm like,
that's a very good advice.
Yeah, I mean, definitely if you're like just sitting at home drinking and like smoking pot or whatever, I mean, that's not going to be conducive to working.
That is not an industrious way to work.
Probably a sign of a bigger problem.
Right.
Okay. Our coming week is, we're basically working with this client to make videos over at our rental. That's cool. It's going to be a very busy week.
Although our eBay store will still be going, so I wake up in the morning and I pack stuff and I ship stuff before we go over to the other job site.
And we have our helper who's coming over taking pictures while we're doing something else. So it's good.
Hopefully I'll be able to keep up in some little downtime with listing stuff.
Yep, and I'll be working as with our handyman who's coming over. So we have some kind of a fixer-upper projects on rentals that I'm trying to get done. It's before, summer starts.
Right. Okay, let's take calls. You can always call our voicemail line, and the phone number is 540-407-8486. Although the first thing we're going to play was an email that someone emailed us, an actual audio file, and it sounds very nice.
Hey, Jay and Ryan. My name is DJ. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. And I just want to say that I've listened to all your podcasts, and you guys are a major influencer in my business. And, I've gone from part-time to full-time, and I look forward to listening to you every Monday. I had just a quick comment about some things you said on your last podcast, that being about INAD cases. Now, things may have changed in the last week, but 2 weeks ago, I had an item not as described case, and what I was told by eBay during that case was that they were no longer getting involved during the actual case. And what they said was I had to wait until the case was complete, that it was done, and then I could take action. So what happened was that in this case, a buyer claimed an item not as described, and I had proof that he had received the item in excellent condition. That being, one, he gave me excellent feedback, and two, he ended up reselling my item. But that's a whole nother story. But eBay said, their customer representatives, when I called, was that they no longer get involved when someone files an INAD case. And so when the item not as described case ended, it was decided in their favor. Once the case was complete, then I went back and filed an appeal, and the decision was reversed. And so I just want to encourage you maybe to look into that eBay doesn't get involved until the case is complete. Then you can appeal the case. This was important because I didn't want a mark on my record. So I would just encourage that you check into that, mainly because if this is no longer true, then I would like to know for my business. But it seems like in these cases, we have to wait till the case is complete. Then we can appeal. Let me know your thoughts. Again, enjoy listening to you.
Number one, you get 5 stars, 5 scavenger stars for doing such a good recording.
It sounds beautiful.
You recorded in your home, on your phone, and it sounds great. Yeah, so that's, so we got the same experience, although it's interesting he took it a bit farther. We were also told that they no longer get involved in these cases. But we didn't know that then you could go back later. That feels really weird because what happens is normally the buyer will always win.
Right.
Because eBay's not getting involved. So it's really then you have to give the buyer all their money back, and then you can go back and fight it. That seems really
My question is, how did you fight it? Did you just call
afterwards and say, now I want you to get involved?
Yeah.
That's good to know, because I thought that, after they made the decision, I thought that was final, but maybe it's not final, so that's interesting.
I'm glad it got reversed. I think one time I had a thing where it was an INAD, and then they went in my favor, and then the buyer appealed that, and then I appealed the buyer. Like, it just kept going back and forth. Finally, I think they decided, this was a while ago, that they would give the buyer their money and give me the money, because it just kept going back and forth. But that's, I guess, a different kind of case.
Yep.
Hi, Jay and Ryan. This is Sherry from Oklahoma, and I've been a long-time listener. I just thought I'd call in with something that just recently happened to me. I sold a tapestry to a person in France in a chateau, and they got it right away, and they gave me a great feedback that read it was a very lovely item. I had very fast shipping, and I was a great seller. Then a few days later, they said they didn't like it, and they wanted to return it. And I said, sure, but they'd have to pay for all the return shipping. Then they asked for my address, and I sent it. Then they opened a case and called eBay and said they opened a case. And even eBay said it sounded like it was buyer's remorse and would review and let me know. Well, of course, they went in favor of the buyer. I was really disappointed because eBay is my game, and I, like you guys, never go to the dark side on it. I always think eBay's, a good place, and they're not trying out to get you, but I know this is about the free shipping they're pushing, and I feel like opting out of the global shipping program if this is going to continue to happen. Love your podcast. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
So let me clarify. It sounds like what happened is the person said they had buyer's remorse. I don't like it. Let me just return it. And then she was like, okay, sure. Since it's global shipping, you got to pay for everything. And then the buyer was like, oh, no, I'm opening an item not as described, please. And then eBay was like, okay, fine, close it. I mean...
See, this is when... Yeah. So this is for us going back to the idea of being silent.
Yeah.
You know, we have returns on all of our items.
Right.
It says it on the item. It's very clearly stated in our handling, you know, so a buyer can see that. It's not a secret.
Right.
So if a buyer is like, I'm unhappy about something, but then it's just like, well, then you can return it. But we don't actually have to tell them that until they open up a case. And I guess that's my concern about, like, you know, getting into hand-holding people through the process.
Well, yeah, I mean, my advice always is to call eBay and be like, I have a global shipping program person, they want to return the item.
And if you can walk them through the conversation,
right.
They said they were unhappy because they just changed their mind. I told them to return it, but they had to pay the shipping. And now she's saying it's not as described.
And eBay can see all those messages.
And hopefully eBay can see that that's the...
Right, so hopefully that would help you out. But yeah, that is a pain.
Hey, it's Tony Collins. Thanks so much for all you do with the podcast and the forum. Had a quick question for you. I'm a big fan of buying magazine lots at auctions and estate sales. Was just curious if you guys have done that and how you sell them. Do you sell them individually? Do you sell them in groups, maybe by year? Because some of these magazines are highly collectible, but they're really long tail. If you list them separately, you might get $10, $20, $30, $40 for an issue of a magazine, but you might be sitting on them for 5 years. The alternative is to maybe list a year. You're not going to get the same premium that you would. You're probably not going to sell a year for, $120, $240. Anyway, just wanted to hear your thoughts if you guys have ever done that and what tactics you've used. Thanks so much.
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, the magazines that we have are not vintage magazines. Like, they are literally like Architectural Digest from 2 years ago.
Well, I mean, so, we don't have that many magazine lots that we buy, but a year ago, I bought 2 boxes of this particular magazine.
Right.
It wasn't that old, from the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Right.
I mean, it was, someone had just collected all of these. I bought all of them for $5, and what we did is we just broke them up by
year.
A year, and we sold each a year for $40.
Right.
Now, like you said, it's long tail.
It's super long tail.
We haven't sold them all, but
we have sold some.
We've already sold probably over $100 worth of stuff. So,
and the issue with selling by year always is, I just need November of that year. Can you just sell that to me? No, I even say it in my listing, I will not break up this lot.
Right.
So I just keep it because that's a pain. It's like, just buy the whole lot. It's cheap enough, you know?
So I don't know. I mean, again, it's got to be, it's one of those things where if you're into that kind of thing, it's best if you can break them up and be willing to sit on it. I wouldn't sell them one by one if they're only worth $5 or $10, but you can group them up
by year. Yeah, year. I like doing that.
Hi, this is Judy in New Orleans. I want to thank you all for your constant help for us resellers. My question is, every month if you put your item as renew every 30 days, then at the end of the 30th day, we're hearing on YouTube that you should then end the listing and then sell similar. But we have so many listings, so many items, I don't know how we could keep up with that. So we're wondering, what are y'all doing? Are y'all taking all your items that end and raising them through sell similar so they're raised up in search, or are you just good till canceled? How are y'all dealing with this? Okay, thanks. So we'll wait to hear your answer. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Yeah, this is always the question.
This is the big schism.
Right.
Among the reseller world.
This is always a question.
We're listed and forget it.
That's our whole philosophy.
We do good till canceled. We've done that for almost the whole time that we've sold. We sell every week. I don't know. We feel good about it.
And like you said, the people who are ending and relisting, I'm just like, I have so many items that would take way too much time, and I just don't want to do that.
I mean, some people say they have a process, it's not a big deal. That's cool. Again, it's just what you want to do. If you feel like it's helping you, I think for me, some of it is just it's a psychological thing where people feel it makes them feel they have control. They're
refreshing,
and that's great. Now there was a seller, TSAT, who is really good at his numbers, and he actually has done a graph, and he has shown that like the first day and the 30th day of every month, there's a rise in their sales, because he thinks he's redoing it. But then, when I asked him, well, how much extra are you think you're making a month? He says he's making about $200 to $400 extra a month.
Which is good, right?
So it's not bad. But to me, though, it's like, okay, that's not like a game changer. It's not like I'm selling 100 items a month and then I'm redoing all this. I'm now selling 400 items, It's like a bump.
It's a blip.
And so if you can work your way into that, a system that makes you feel good, then great.
Hi, guys. It's Auction Kenny. I was just calling you guys. I wanted to clarify a couple things about what you were talking about on last week's show. And, first thing I wanted to clarify is my name. The reason I named myself that on the forum is not because I love eBay auctions. It's because I work in auction houses as a ringer and a clerk. So that's why I named myself Auction Kenny. I actually have about 14 out of 500 listings that are auctions right now. So I don't love them in that, but I do contend that you should use them sometimes. And saying never is a mistake. And that's all I was trying to get across, is they're a tool in your tool bag that you need to use when the situation is right. So when's that situation? Well, in my opinion, it's when you have no comparables. You got nothing to compare it to. So, whether it's a different color, different size, there's nothing like it, or it's super rare, or when you've got a grouped lot that you, for whatever reason, need to sell as a lot of things. So it's a big bunch of things. So that leads me to the pencils. So, the pencils, there was never a question as to whether I would sell them individually as a lot or as a lot. It was always going to be sold as a lot. I explained that on the forums. But I know there's more value individually. The problem isn't the value. The problem is the time. I don't have the time to list 100 pencils. The question was always, what would you set the buy it now at on that? So how I do it is I look at something like that, and I still do my research. Now, in this case, I know pencils. That's not even my best pencil sale ever. So I know pencils. I know what they're worth. There were a couple $30 ones in there. But I didn't want to do all of the hundreds of other ones. So what I do is I set my buy it now. Then I ask myself, is it possible that I'm way off for some reason, whether it's $10, $100, $1,000? Could I be way off? If it's possible, I do a 7-day auction. If it doesn't sell, which 99% of the time they don't sell, I only have one bid out of the 15 auctions that I go in right now, I roll it into a 30-day. eBay even gives you a button that lets you do this. So, that's evidence that eBay is saying this is a viable way to do things. So, that's why I think that you should use auctions when it's super rare or when you got a big lot and you can't price everything. I just think it's a tool in your tool bag. I apologize for being a jerk on the forums. I get excited sometimes, but I'm really not trying to convince everybody to do them every day, just to think about using them. Thanks, guys. Love the show.
So, Auction Kenny, I'm glad you called back. I think that this whole thing, we've been going back and forth with him on the forum and then on the podcast, and it's just like, agree to disagree. I agree in the sense of, auctions are a tool in your tool bag. Yeah. And if you enjoy auctions and if you understand how to use them for your own store, then that's great. I guess for us, it's just simply this. We're not good at picking the items that work well in auctions. I think that's what it comes down to. We've tried and we're just so frustrated because we're like, this is perfect for auction. We'll put it on auction and like nothing happens. And just for us, and again, this is just is representing a certain way to sell on eBay, and our way is to list strong prices after we do a lot of research with make offer, especially for like rare or high dollar items.
I like to think of a price and put a 1 in front of it.
And that works for us. So again, our thing is, it's like a reverse auction. We put it really high, right, and then we let people make offers. And then we'll just start getting offers, and we kind of see where the market is, Yeah. And that's what works for us. It's not perfect. That's what we feel comfortable with. Right. And other people like Auction Kenny, whose name is because he works at an auction, not because he loves eBay auctions. But, he seems to have a good skill at choosing the items that he likes to put on eBay auctions. Right. And, he famously linked in our forum. He bought a piece of art for like a couple $100 or something, and he sold it at like a big auction for like $15,000 or something.
Wow!
So that's awesome. I just in our daily listing, we just do not think about putting things up on auction because all the experiments we've ever done just have not been very good.
Hey Jay, hi Ryan. So this is Sigal from California, and I kind of have a story with a question. So today I went on a Craigslist ad. I answered a Craigslist ad, free stuff, great. I go over there, and it's crazy. This girl was a hoarder, and she got kicked out of this apartment, and actually a house, 3-bedroom house, 2-story house. I mean, there wasn't room to walk. They'd already cleared out the living room, so that was good. But I walked upstairs and into the garage, and the garage was so full that in order to get anywhere, you had to move things to get, and you couldn't even move them. You had to actually move them out. It was incredible. Most of the stuff was clothes, and none of it was vintage. It was all like from Target, and a lot of it still had the tags on, the price tags. Marshalls, Target, TJ Maxx. There were some brand new perfumes that she had bought online. There were some stuff like that. I did find some leather goods that but that was the minority of the stuff. Most of the stuff was just the kind of stuff you'd see at Marshalls and Target, but it was new. So it was so overwhelming. There was just I didn't even know where to start. So I just picked out some things and I loaded up my car and I left. But I was left, it's like you leave and you're like, you don't know if you've left something behind. It's that scavenger dilemma. It's like, do I go back? Do I get more stuff? Do I just be happy with what I got and, try to process it all because it's going to take a couple of weeks to just get through it all? Is it even worth, all the effort? Because it's not really very valuable stuff, except for a couple of things that I picked up, which I'm sure I'll make a little money on, the leather goods and things like Harley, biker stuff that I thought was pretty good. But the rest of it wasn't. And then, of course, there's always that mystery, like, is there more stuff in there that I didn't see? So anyway, I was just left with that, feeling of yay and oh my God, do I go back? So I just thought I'd share this and commiserate with you guys and see if you had any just feedback, what you would have done, how you would have handled it, and that's it. And of course, we just want to say thanks for everything you guys are doing. Love you guys. You've been lifesavers. Everybody on the forum, just been amazing. So thanks, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
So she actually emailed us after and clarified that this woman was actually just giving stuff away for free. It wasn't a yard sale. It was like, just come take some stuff.
Right, because the owner of the house was only there for a day. They're from the East Coast, and the house was on the West Coast, and she just wanted to get rid of everything. So it was like a one-time grab.
Right, and so what she said is, like, I don't think the tenant themselves was there. They just, like, left all this stuff there. It's something like that, which is kind of
I mean, I don't
crazy.
know, but I think the bigger kind of question or topic we're talking about is just, like, when you go somewhere and there's, like, more than you can handle. And I've had that experience once. I remember it very clearly.
Yes.
It was a military auction, or it was an auction of like an army, a surplus store, and this guy was just selling everything. And we were still relatively a new Scavengers, it was like in 2010 or something, and I kind of went there on my own. And you weren't there, and the auction started, and there weren't a lot of people there, and no one was really buying anything, and everything was cheap, and I just started to bid.
You were just buying everything.
And I remember they started putting everything in a pile of my stuff. And, like one auction, one bid would be for like a big box and then like 5 boxes. Yeah. And the pile just got bigger and bigger. And I realized like I could probably buy the whole thing.
You could buy everything.
And I just got really overwhelmed. And I started to like be like, nope, I'm not going to buy that. I'm not going to buy that. I loaded my car up.
The car was so filled.
I came home, dropped it off. We had to go back and get more stuff. But looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I just
bought
bought
everything,
the whole thing, because we made so much money off that. But it's just that feeling of getting overwhelmed. I know we've talked several times about doing estate cleanouts.
Right.
I even checked out online, like, if you can get like a license. I don't know if it's a license, but like a certificate.
Oh, so to do it, yeah.
To be an official auction cleanout person. I don't know.
And it sounds like that's a similar thing that she went to. It's almost like an estate.
But where you go into that business where like people call you and pay you to come and clean out a loved one's house because they just died, and then you throw stuff away. I mean, I'm like, I think it'd just be too much for me.
It's just too much.
Too much stuff.
Yeah.
I think we like to go in
and cherry pick
get the nice stuff, and then let other people clean things out.
Exactly. So I feel you where you're like, there was so much stuff. What did I miss?
Yeah,
did I not see? But, sometimes you just have to be like, I gotta go.
If a lot of it's junky too, it's like, I don't want to deal with that
stuff. I mean, you're really sifting through it.
Yep.
Okay, that's it for the podcast this week. You can check out the blog at scavengerlife.com for the links we discussed and to join the conversation on the forum. You can call and leave a question or a comment on our voicemail line. The phone number is 540-407-8486. We post an episode every Monday morning. On Wednesday, we post a What Sells video. Currently being brought to you by Stephen Schultz. You can subscribe to us through iTunes or YouTube so you always get the latest episode. And we are ending our podcast in 3, 2, 1. Bye.